Hello there, and welcome once again to my little arty corner of YouTube. It is YouTube, and it's the 14th of February. It's a Monday here in the valleys of South Wales, which is grey, dampish. Yeah, I know you get a weather report every day. It's just my way. And of course, 14th of February is Valentine's Day, but it's also a Monday this year. So, going on with my themes of the day for my social media posting for, the week, because there's 7 days in a week, but I'm taking a Sunday off, and I'm most probably taking a Wednesday or a Thursday. I haven't made my mind up which. It's probably Wednesday because I need to get each week's template drawn. And there may possibly be a third day off from time to time. But anyway, I haven't made my mind up yet. I'm just trying this out to see how it works for me. So Mondays are Motif Monday because I have a lot of motifs and things that you couldn't class as tangle patterns or fragments as such. And these are things I love to include in my drawings, in my art. The bookmark on Saturday, if you saw that one, is an example of just about, well, it's all motifs really. And they're my favourite thing, some of my favourite things to draw. So as it's Valentine's Day, I thought I'd take the theme of flowers, and I happen to have this piece of paper in my disc-bound sketchbook, which has got little flowers on it. They look like dog roses almost. So we've got a rosy background and it's pink, so that'll go nicely. So the simplest rose, because I'm going to do roses, but I'm also going to do flowers. The simplest rose I know how to draw is most probably akin to the Macintosh rose, which is iconic of the Glasgow School of Art of Charles Rennie Mackintosh. That very stylised, simple, quite geometric almost designs that were around in the Art Nouveau period. And, well, I'm sure I'm not the only one who loves it because they're absolutely perennial. And I think it's called the Glasgow Rose, but I could be wrong. Now, I may not draw it exactly the same way, but it starts with a circle, and then you draw an arc, and then another arc. And I'm going to do another one on the other side, like that. Then I'm going to put one there, and another one here. And they actually don't need to be equidistant. In fact, if you vary them a little bit, the distance this side, so this distance is smaller than this one, it actually makes it kind of more organic in feeling. And you just carry on with these kinds of folds. I tend to do this one, I did one on this side, and then two on opposite sides, two on opposite sides. But when you make these distances here and here, different sizes, it starts to twist this around in a nice way. And depending on the space you've got, you can just pop a circle in there like it's the centre of the rose. Really, really simple. And it will work on any size you like. Of course, you can change the rules if you wish, or how you draw it. It will work out no matter what. So there we are, smaller version. And I'll do another one where I have two outside sections, but they start from the same point. Because that's something to do if you want a more top-down view of the rose. And simply, you can simply add a couple of leaves if you wish. Didn't think there of space, but you get the idea. And if you're putting a load of them together, I would leave the leaves until last, because they do actually form a lovely sort of random filler pattern almost, to have them in piles, you know, the way I love to do things in art. Let me just reach one of my current works at the moment and I'll show you what I mean. So like here, I've got these all piling up, and then I put these flex leaves in after I'd finished filling them. This was the end of the first layer, but once I'd had bits in, I added another one, and so on. It grew from there. So you tuck them, I tuck them in around and about, and perhaps other little clusters of them to bring the design together. So there's it's not just in one place you have a particular motif. You have the same thing or something very similar elsewhere, so that ties them together. And the other one, because I've got two drawings on the go, because, you know, there's me. And you can see I've done the same thing here. I've got a grouping of these flowers here. I've got moonberries here and over here. I do like moonberries. And I've got these, which are similar in form to these. They're not identical, but they're the same kind of thing. And I've got these. Oh, you can't see. Move it down a bit. You can see these here. So I really do enjoy drawing these. And there are sort of tangle patterns in there because, you know, that's how they work. Okay, so that's one kind of rose. Now another one, you can start with a little heart shape, and then it's like drawing the outside of hearts. It's almost like that would connect there to create a heart, and you just sort of like work your way around the flower. You don't have to go one after the other. In fact, it's quite nice if you skip around and don't have it too regularly organised. It looks more like a natural flower that way. And it's also nice if the further out you go, you make these, the petals, the arcs of the petals, this space underneath them bigger, because that's how it would look in a flower. It's a very stylised way of drawing a rose, but it works. And I've done these quite rounded, but some roses have quite pointed petals, and I'm not very good at drawing them, and basically because I've only just thought about them. So typically Angela, oh yeah, let's talk about that. And then so like so, and just keep that kind of feeling going, so you can adjust the shape of the petals as well. And again, we can pop some some leaves in. Rose leaves are more like this realistically. They sort of like, they have a number of leaflets on each leaf, and they do have serrated edges, but nobody will object if on a small scale you draw them like this, I'm sure, because again, we're stylising the drawings. They're not meant to be a botanical illustration, but they're roses. And just because this one's that much bigger, so I can draw these serrated leaves. So I go out, back a bit, out, back a bit, point, down, out, curve in, step out, curve in, and you get a serrated leaf. And you can either put the veins in so they just don't touch the edge of the flower, the leaf. You can try and get them from the points, but it's much easier to draw them from those little steps down. You get a different feel if you draw them from the points. So let me have a go at drawing one. Where we draw from the points of the segments. That's probably will need a finer pen. Luckily I dug out a finer pen. If they don't meet on the central rib vein, that's fine. In fact, they often don't in nature, so that's perfectly fine. But this one looks almost like you've got layers of little leaves building up, whereas this one looks more like a leaf. Okay. I can't think of any other ways I could draw roses. I'm sure other people can. So let's move on to some other flowers. One of my favourites, which I don't use often enough actually, is I start with this kind of shape in the middle. It's like the centre of a flower. I'm going to pop a heart on either side, and then I'm just going to leave it like that on this version and pop a couple more hearts here and leave it like that. I could put I could do the same on this side so that I get a more of a flower built up. So that, or we could do the same here and add these little bits on the end for a little bit of variety. And then in the middle here, I would add little leaves. So that's one way of experimenting with this. What I would also do with this one, I'll do this on one side, one of them, is pop some mucas in like that, which I think are quite sweet. Actually, I'll do that on both, and I'll very quickly redraw the pattern that we started with, so there's a comparison. And again, they can be drawn any kind of size you like. There's a small one. The other thing I like to do with this one, which doesn't, I suppose they're not strictly flowers, they're floral, as in they've got that, you know, flowery feel about them. I suppose botanical-ish might be an idea. But here I'm going to add these kinds of doublies, and then when there's a space in the middle, that's when I'm going to pop this in and just pop a bead on it. I could have put something else there, so that's quite nice. So that's a different one. It's got more of the sort of like rice or seed or leaf shape, and a more pointy oval shape to it, which is quite nice. Like this one, there's all kinds of things we could do here. So I could pop something like that there, just to fill that space up and add some more interest on the other side. In the same way, we could, I say same way, having the same thoughts, you can add things inside them. With these, we can add fills to some of the petals so they look like they're folded over. Making use of where they naturally dip down in our drawing. So that adds dimension to them. With these ones, there is a possibility of, in some of the bigger sections, so for example here, especially if you draw this much, much bigger, of being able to add patterns within to one section or a couple of sections, just to add interest, or just simply adding some dots along part of the edge of some of the petals, perhaps the outside ones, just to add a bit more interest. It's whatever you would like to do. So these are some of my favourites to do. I do have to say, I really do enjoy these ones. Really simple flowers. Start with that. And then, for some reason, these always make me really happy. There's just something about having that big centre and these little petals that just makes me smile. I think it's because this central part nearly always is a bright golden yellow with some orange and so on. So it really shines like the sun. And that's always guaranteed to make me feel quite happy. But what's also nice, if you want, what I also like to do is to pop flowers sometimes. I haven't used this for a while actually. I'm glad I've dug my little book out. So draw a big circle, a double circle, so we've got a border there, and then we can pop the flower inside so its petals reach right up to that inner border. And then I like contrast, so I would colour this in black so that the flower really stands out inside. Just a different way of creating flowers. And of course, we can do this with any shape. You could make the petals pointy. We could put they actually go nicely together because they keep the flowers sort of separate. So I could, instead of having nice big petals, is have narrower ones, still long. So these ones are quite wide, these ones are quite long, but you could have as many petals as you like. And the fewer petals, the bigger the space between them. So if I add another one here, because I can, I'm going to have this here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark in where I want the centre of the petals to be, because doing something like this really helps to bring out that flowery feel. So I know this is going to be the centre, and I want to go halfway from there up to there, halfway to there. And then we've got all of these spaces around here that we could work with to create more of a Zentangle kind of fragment. It's still floral and still can be counted as a motif. I guess I call them motifs because, or design elements, because that's exactly what they are. I use them in bunches and bundles as part of whatever it is I'm drawing. But flowers certainly are one of my favourite things. If I go back to this kind of one here, and I will draw one here. With really tiny little petals on it, it ends up looking a bit more like a sunflower, I suppose. Because sunflowers have those huge centres, don't they? And with the small, or what seems to be quite small and very densely collected petals around, but their petals are pointed. And then instead of having a circle in the middle, let's put a bunch of circles around the edge as if they're going around. That adds a feeling of weight or something towards the bottom and suggests shadow, and starts to add that feeling of volume to this. Something else I like to do with the centre of flowers, and here I'm going to pop different, these are all arcs, all little arches, but just by varying the width, the height, combinations of width and height, you get a different feel of the flower. I've shown this before. I like to do that for shading. I don't know what it is about it, but I really like it. And of course, if we really want to get Zentangle, we can turn these into almost like a version of crescent moon. And the other thing that I like to do making these more rectangular rather than arches. I'm still keeping the corners rounded, but having the top just a little bit flatter. Just changing the shape there. But I also like to, it's a variation of that, but having the dark circles in really suggests shadow, which is fun. Okay, others. If I go to these, this is just an interesting variation. I've forgotten about this, and I tend to. This is why I like to keep these A5 books I have with patterns in I like or that I've collected. Same as motifs that I like or I've collected or come up with. Because every now and again I look back and think, oh, I haven't used that for ages. Because I can get stuck in the mode of using the same old because I like them. But then when I go and look in my little book, I go, oh, I haven't used this for ages. I think I want to use that one. And this is one I haven't used for ages. But it's sort of like, instead of having the petals around the outside or coming from the centre out, because these are really centres, it's from inside in. So we've inverted them almost like they're folding up for the night. And there are flowers that do this. Livingston daisies are one. Ordinary daisies will fold up when, when it's coming towards the day's end. The origin of the word daisy is from day's eye, which is Anglo-Saxon, which means day's eye. And so it opens in the day and closes overnight, which is quite fascinating. Others will close at rain. So, some open at different times of the day. There was I don't know if it's familiar to you in America. I'm not entirely sure whether it's familiar to people this day and age anyway, but a lot of public parks used to have flower clocks, and so they were planted with patterns of flowers where the flowers would open and close. Each flower would open and close at a different time of day, so you could literally tell the time by the flower clock. Yes, it's true, and they worked. And I can remember my local park having something like that when I was very young. I can't remember it in more recent times, and I don't know if they're still done, but flower clocks, there you are. My random piece of information for the day, well, this must probably been lots, but these are quite fun. And taking this as a kind of idea as well is to have this in the middle, and I'm going to draw the in-between bits more than the petals for a moment. Sometimes it's a lot easier to do these in-between sections. So now that looks like almost like a stone with cracks in it. It looks like there's a star caught in the stone, but I am going to pop petals shapes on top of each of these sections so that I can then adjust how many there are between them. But I didn't want the edge of a petal to connect with these lines. And then we've got an unusual centre for a flower, so that's quite fun. A simple flower would be to start at a point, and draw however many petals you can around that point, keeping them all about the same size. And then it's rather, I like this, I draw a smaller version of the petal shape. Perhaps just add a little bit there just to darken that. It's a very simple flower. Okie dokes, add this one. I'm going to draw lines around the perimeter, roughly equal sized. You can see I've done them I put them vertical, horizontal, and then split the distance between them And then I can draw my petals in this way. I can do them straight like that. I can actually make them heart-shaped. We can have them really bending out. And I suppose you could even have them bending in, though that's not, that might work if it's furled. Actually, that would work if it was a furled one like that. So lots of different ways, but what I wanted to do here is to add some lines to separate this up in the middle. Now that would work on its own. It would work on its own. But if we do it the other way round, sort of like at 90 degrees to the original, then we get a grid here which we could play with Knightsbridge. I'm going to keep that middle one bright, but you could do it dark. And then it's just colouring in alternate boxes in a chessboard pattern. And you get a little piece of optical art in the middle, because those, by colouring them in, you actually enhance that effect of the dome, especially if you start with the lines wide apart here and they gradually get narrower and narrower towards the edges, then you get a stronger version of that. You can put 2 lines on there, you could put a hump, you could put a stamen, you could echo, put something like that in here. All kinds of things we could do. And by putting lines underneath here, it suggests that we've got something that is sticking over. There's another way of doing that. So that's all good fun. Okay. All variations in one go. I can hear my home phone ringing. I'm not going to answer it. The last time I did, it was apparently from Amazon telling me there'd been a problem with a payment with my orders. That doesn't happen because Amazon never phone you. And if there was a problem, you'd be notified by email, or however it's email. So I just don't bother. If it's somebody who needs to speak to me, they'll leave a message and I'll get back to them, because this is how I do things. Now, one of the flowers I've been drawing lately is flowers, 2 types. I start with either a Y shape and use the gaps between as the guide for where the petals go, or a cross shape. I don't connect the petals to the centre, I leave the centre open, which is a nice way of doing it. You can also do it with any number of lines you like. So I've got 5 here, and I'll go back to 4, because you can also change the shape of the petals going around. I find the hearts are the ones that take the most concentration, because I like to get the centre of this lined up with these here. But of course it's easy enough to do these lines around a central circle, and so that can help with spacing petals out nicely as well. So that's another way of doing this. I also like to do this. Let's do 6 and just have the overall shape of the flower without individual petals, again using the gaps between these lines as a guide to where the bottom point goes. I did over here somewhere, which one was it? This one, wasn't it? Where I put the circle in and then I made these lines really long, because that way then I can join them up to create flowers that way. So we have that going on there. There we go. And I'm going to put some little hearts in there because it is Valentine's Day. So there's those. Okie dokes. Talking of heart-shaped flowers, there are plenty of ways of doing this. I am going to again put 6 petals in. I'm just putting little marks around my circle for where I want the petals to start in this case, because I'm going to draw some heart-shaped petals in, which actually have quite a big gap between them. This could actually form the basis of drawing a snowflake. I mean, it is February here in the UK, and we're known to have snow at weird times of the year from time to time. So in between, we could just pop another petal like this, putting the V shape of the heart at the bottom and not worrying too much about tracing around, because they would fit in that way and fill it in that way. So you get a different kind of flower like that. Talking of ones like this, because I do like to pop things inside circles. So put the centre of the flower off centre in this circle. And then we get lovely off-centred flowers. Now that is a tip and a trick. Well, I need to find my pencil case because I need my pencil. I didn't get my pencil out, but I have now. If you look at a flower directly on, you'll roughly see, in most cases, a circle. If you look at it from the side a little bit, you may get more of an oval, and you may also get a really extended shape like this. And of course, ovals from anywhere from here to almost flat. So the central part of this flower will be here. Here it will be a bit bigger, and in this one it will be in the middle. So as you draw on petals, then you change the aspect or the way that the flower feels, like this. And of course, if you turn it upside down, then this would be where the central bit is in there, but we can also perhaps have something here that the petals grow from. So you have flowers that seem to be turned upwards as well. And that then perhaps translates to this, so we have that going on. So, but it's kind of a circular or semicircular shape there. So that's a way of creating flowers. So you appear to be looking at them. And this one, you can actually enhance this so it stands up a bit, and this one as well. It seems to look more natural to my eye. So that's how you can draw them at different angles and from different perspectives, or just change the way that they appear. And you can do that with any of these, which essentially is what I've done here. So it's still looking, you know, I'll draw this kind of shape, but instead of having the centre right up here, we'll put it somewhere in between, like that. And then you do have to curve the lines for the petals for them to work properly. And to work out how you'd move your pen, you think of this as a dome, and which way would your pen move if it was on a dome? This one I've got it quite straight, so it should be a little bit down. This way would be perhaps that way, this way would go sort of somewhere this way, and so on. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, this one feels like this is lower down. They're rising up and going down, rising up and going down, rising up and going down. So a way to get volume, because some of these do look quite flat, but shadow and highlight and colour bring these to life. And I will just ink these in so you can see what I've done here. Kind of. The basic shapes of the flowers, and over the top I've got my little patterns like this. You could pop these in, one from each of those sections, but I actually had it, if you did an even number of them. So let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I started in the middle. No, they're not exactly even, but there we've got heart-shaped petals going here, and I can enhance that by lengthening the lines and putting a couple of dots in, and that would be where the stem connects. Sometimes you get little leaves here, so you can add little leaves or a little spiral if you don't want to put a full leaf in. Well, I join it up, but you can see then how the structure is. Perhaps if I dot these in, the pencil lines, because I know in time my pencil lines will fade. But then if I had another colour, I could draw it in a different colour, but you get the idea. So I'm tapping my fingers because I'm still on one page and I'm still looking at loads of flowers. Okay, something that's just a bit different and very simple would be a very squashed oval shape. You draw it this way, you draw another line there, and then we can pop some stamen in, coming out of the centre, and we got a flower like this. I quite like that for how simple and how stylized it is. I really do. And finally, I'm going to start with a circle here, and I'm going to create something that's like a dandelion seed head out of hearts by drawing straight lines with hearts on. Here's my stem. I shall pop the stem in, and I'm squashing some in the other side here because they're close to this. But when I've got a nice selection round there, I go in between them and keep these lines shorter, but still popping a heart on the top. And you can go around and add them in more like that. Mine are becoming quite black, which I think is fine, because it starts to add that feeling that there's a lot going on here. And of course, with dandelion seed heads, they do fly away. So with that, I'm going to finish that one, because that is wishing a wish for love for everybody in this world to know love and to be loved, I think. I've got a few gaps, but there's plenty going on here, I think. And just feeling this paper too thin for me to use markers on, because they'll go through to the other side, and the other side does have the last day of Fragments for Your Imagination challenge. So I think I'm going to have to go to a tortillon and this is scarlet, which will do, and let's just add some colour as shadow to these. The shadow can be grey, or black, or, you know, whatever colours you like. I've been colouring the bookmark in digitally. I've actually used warm greys, so sort of like browny greys for the shadows, which is quite fun. It does vary if you use. I did this in a video, I'm not sure if it was last week or the week before. I looked at adding shadows. If I remember, which there's no guarantee I will pop that into my into the description, but by the time I get there, my head will have gone on to other things. And what colour, you know, what kind of grey tone you use as an undershadow will affect the colour of the colour you add over the top. And they work in different ways, so I think it's quite important to think about that. And I'm still getting to grips with all of this. I spent yesterday, or a fair amount of time yesterday and Saturday, playing with digital colouring, because it's taking me quite a while for things to settle in. And this is why I need some more time, is because I'm very much aware that I need this kind of time to work with digital art, because digital colouring is my superpower, I suppose. And I very much want to learn more about it. I also have to learn a lot more about colour theory, I think. Roses, they tend to be deeper in colour on the centre, don't they? And I think that's the way to do it, is to have these petals really quite deeply coloured and just pull the colour out around them. I'm sure there are people who will manage to do this far better than I will, because I'd actually do it petal by petal. The other way is to add the colour underneath each petal. So you add a shadow where these sort of like are close to each other. That's the best way, you know. There are two ways of adding shadow, really. One way is to consider the light source, and I always think of a light source as being up to the top right, but it can be, I'm looking at this, so which parts will be close to me, which parts will be further away? The parts that are closer to me will be lighter in colour. So if the outside parts of the petals are closer to me, I want them lighter in colour, and the ones that are closer to the centre are further away, so I want them darker in colour. So that's one way of working it. Another way is to look at the flower or the design. So if I take this one, because this one's quite simple, this bit in the centre is overlapping these, so there would be shadow there next door to them, and it would fade out somewhat. So I'm using colour for shadow here, and that's, you know, that's one way of doing it. Then I've got other things, like I've got these little bits which are next to this here, so we pop some shadow there. And then the little bits on the outside would have shadow in them as well, right next to there, because these two parts are touching or very close to each other. And in here they would be as well, except they're petals. So you end up with something that's fairly similar, but it's a different kind of approach. This one is as if you're looking straight on. Have I got one here? This one, if I did light source, this side, these are a bit further away from the light source. There'd be a bit of shadow there. All of this around the top would be light, and then as I get to the bottom, there'll be more and more of it in shadow. So that's a very quick way of adding that kind of volume, and it gives it very much a volumatic feel. This still feels a little bit flat, but I can alter that by perhaps putting a fair amount of shadow here, just a little bit around the outside edge, but keeping the central part mainly open, so you've got more of a sense of volume that's going on there. With these ones, this is interesting because I've got nothing much in the middle, except that I can decide that perhaps this here is perhaps where there would be plenty of shadow. And I can just move it up into the petals just that little bit. And that then could be filled with a different colour, or it could even be even darker than this. So if I go and get a really dark colour, I've got black here, that'll do. Pop a little bit of black, and this black is super black. I can mix the two together, and then we get that dark spot in the middle. So that would work as well. So it's just thinking about your patterns and what you'd want from them. If I was thinking about a light source, again, parts of the petal that are closest to the light. So if these petals are bending downwards, so down here would be very much in shadow, this would be in shadow, this would be in shadow, and perhaps there'd be a little bit in the middle because there may be a little dip there. Let's have a look. With these, the trick is not to fill everywhere with the colour, is to leave highlights, but thinking about the shape that you want the petal to be. So I'd want it quite domed, and to leave the highlights where you want them. With these, sometimes it is easier to colour with a pattern in mind. This one, the light's coming this way, top bit here in the middle will be the lightest. We'd have some shadow on this side because it's bending away, a lot more shadow this side, so a little bit here, a bigger area here, and this down here needs to be quite dark, so I'll just add a bit more this pink. Bear in mind that as I'm working with these can be erased with an eraser, and in here, down here would be really, really dark, except the light would hit the bottom lip. Think about it, it's going to hit inside there just a little bit. So let's do that. So we've got a feeling that there's volume there, that it's almost like a cup. Again, it could do with some darkness in there, but I think you're getting the idea. If there are any Macintoshes, then I think I would go with where they overlap. Thinking about where one layer overlies the other and just putting a bit of shadow where those overlying areas are. But I'd also put some here on this side, so there's some shadow here just to give that sense of volume, and here as well. On the outer ones I would just, except for this top one. Not so easy to do this with a paper stump perhaps, but and in the middle I think I'd just fill it all in, so you get a feeling of layers overlapping, interweaving and so on. So I hope that's helped. I hope you've enjoyed my little tour of flower motifs I particularly like, and that you'll give a go at drawing some of them. I do really enjoy drawing flowers, you never guess that. I like tangle patterns, but it tends to be flowers, botanicals, and and seed pods and fungi, shells and things from the natural world that appear in my drawings a lot. But with architectural elements, it's those arches that get in every blooming where. Let's have a look. So if you have a look at this one, I've got the more architectural and geometric patterns in here in the form of arches and separate areas, and they give places for different layers to grow from. So it helps the layers, but it gives me a chance to put in my favourite geometric patterns. This one appears a new one. I don't know if that exists. I came up with this yesterday. This is kind of a variation of, it's not zip, doodah. Instead of lines though, I've got these little shapes. So these are all fun. And this one, I've only got one arch, unless you count these so far. I don't count these because they're more like things you might see at the bottom of the ocean or in a coral reef of some kind. But it's that they're a juxtaposition, a counterpoint to the very curvy nature of the florals. I've got something that's a bit more architectural. They're still curved. What am I on about? The more organic feel of the botanicals compared to the more structural feel of arches. Again, it's that juxtaposition. And of course, flowers are something that appear often in my work. So there's a page almost full of them. So have a go. If you do any and you share your drawings on social media, please tag me in. You can find my information about my social media in the description. I always pop it there. And I'll see you again tomorrow. And you can find out what my theme for Tuesdays is, because I'm definitely going to be doing a video Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, and Fridays, definitely. Saturdays, probably. The other days, we'll see. It may not, Wednesday is usually the day I do my, well, it's not usually, it is the day I do my colouring template for the Facebook group. But I have a feeling I want to do a mandala this week, which is digital. So there may not be anything this week, but we'll see. It may be that I'll do the mandala and then I'll do a video to show you some of the patterns I used in that. We'll see what happens. So until I see you again, take care, look after yourselves. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, and lovely comments are always welcome. So thank you very much. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Bye all.